My name is Joy, and today I'll be explaining the KonTest demo, and in addition, I'll be providing how I'd like to extend it. So, briefly, let me say what KonTest is. KonTest is a system created to analyze LLM models and see how consistent they are with queries, whether we move the information about and whether we ask questions at different times or we repeat the questions. That's a simplified version. So I'm going to show a demo with me using Gemini, and I also decided to reduce the size of the data set to 5 just so the process is a whole lot faster. And one way I've already decided to speed it up is by already doing the LLM file and the let me see. I already doing the LLM file, apologies, and the KG construct file. So I've already gotten the data from Wikidata, and I also have already um loaded the model that will be tested. So now it's just like checking the error so it can show the results. Let me show some information. Yes. No, let me see. It's in the sorry, let me see. VIM and config.txt. Yes. So as you can see, I chose Gemini here, and I'll come back to here and talk about why I found the countries with the lowest GDP later. That's related to how I plan to extend the study. So let's start by me just running the error finder. So this is some of the results. You can see that it's showing the atomic queries found, like number of valid queries here, number of valid errors, and you can sort of see the information. So this is just my attempt of rerunning the code that was done in the paper, but obviously on a way smaller level. So this is it. There were actually some things I noticed in the file. um, Overall, it's quite good. Let me see. One thing I noticed, let me go to the start of the file, let me see. First of all, this one thing I liked was the config.txt, was that like you could modify the config.txt. You don't like have to go to each part that the LLM appears in. The file is already able to figure out, okay, this is the LLM we're using from the config.txt, and it has the configurations that we chose. So I think that's very, very interesting. Um yeah, but there were certain issues I had when running the code. One error I had was I don't think this is an error necessarily, apologies, but because the time this was made was in 2023, there were some issues with using numpy. It kept telling me that some of the libraries wouldn't work because my numpy 2 was too advanced, was a newer version, but this system uses an older version. But I think that's overall fine. And over here, you can sort of see the template of how it's able to run different, for instance, in this case, is songs. So how it asks is X a song by Y? And also, does X have a song called Y? So, sort of how it rephrases the questions and sees if the system will still give the same responses. But this was definitely a very interesting file to read. Let me see. There was one other thing. Yes, this part. It's the UTF encoding. One thing I noticed, at least, I'm not sure if it's my system, is that when I was trying to run it without adding the encoding UTF, so it's more encompassing, was it didn't really let me, and I kept getting errors. So I was like, okay, maybe I can add UTF and maybe that will make it work. But overall, it's quite nice. As you can see, I said I reduced the find path to 5 just because when I want to run the whole code, it takes me a couple of like hours, like maybe about 1 to 2 hours to run it. I think it's because my system isn't as strong. as probably a more efficient computer, and I have a bunch of programming projects on this computer already. But overall, yeah, that's sort of how I ran the code. Yeah, but let me move on to, as you can see, UTF. I also had to change this part, but I'll move on to how I would like to extend the work. Let me see. Let me close this file. The way I would like to extend the work, I briefly talked about config.txt, so I'll mention it again. As I said before, I'd like to talk about countries that get less media coverage. So I was thinking about what could be the grouping characteristics. Like, for instance, the paper chose countries with the highest GDP, which is like makes sense because those countries are relevant. But I also wanted to look at the outlook of, okay, what about countries that get less media coverage? Maybe the LLM models do not really spend as much time or have as much information to train their data. So these are the countries with the 10 lowest GDPs. And I'd like to work with using these ones instead of these and seeing what happens. So that's just one way to do it. Let me close this file. Another way I wanted to work with the code was with the KG. Let me open that over here. Yeah, okay, here. Yeah, with the KG, uh, I, I already we are using this one. Let me see, yeah, Wikidata. But I think it'll be cool if we're also able to get data from other databases that have similar information. So I decided to check for some databases that also work. Well, this one is specifically for countries, right? For like information regarding geographical names, etc., etc. So it'd be nice if I can, for instance, make a system that combines all three of their responses, and I also assign weights to them. So it's similar to the idea that was introduced in the paper, where the paper said you could combine the four large language models together and then use them as a way to generate the best answer. So it'd be interesting if I'm able to combine all of these three together. Um but yeah, that's another thing I was quite interested in looking at. Uh, but overall, this was really fun, and it was really nice to just perform the experiments and work in the terminal and use Ubuntu and Veeam. Yes, thank you.